In this video, we're going to continue looking at test doubles in Go. Hi, I'm Mark Bradley and welcome to Testing All the Things, a screencast in which we use live coding to demonstrate different types of testing tools and techniques. In this video, we're going to look at mocks. Mocks allow us to pragmatically set up how a function will respond when it's called within our code under test. We can set whether it will return a specific value, throw an exception, or return an error. In this video, we're going to continue working on our driving license number generator application. We're going to add new functions to our license applicant interface and create a mock that will allow us to access those functions and change what happens when they're called. Let's look at the code. In our previous test double videos, we've added functionality to our driving license generator application, and we've looked at different types of test double. So far we've used dummies, stubs and spies, and in this video we're going to move on to using mocks. We're still not yet going to introduce a mocking framework, so we'll be hand generating our own mocks. So let's start adding the functionality that we require. We want our driving license number to be generated from the applicant's initials and date of birth. So we're going to need to add two new functions to our applicant interface. Let's start with the first one of getInitials. And getInitials will return a string. So now our two stubs do not implement this interface. We need to add the new function to our stub structs. So applicant, getInitials, and that's just going to return an empty string because this function will never be called. We shouldn't be getting to this for these two types, so there and there. So now we have set up our existing stubs. Now our tests should continue to run as we expect. Let's just check that. They don't. That's my bad. Right. Marked up the case. Let's run that again. Just check. And we're back to green. So now we can start with our new test, where we're going to need our mock. Create new test function. And we want to test license generation. So we know we need the spy logger and a license generator. Let's move that there. And now we're interested in the license number and the error. Okay. So lg.generate, and now we need a new applicant. So we need a valid applicant. So let's go and create our test double for that. We'll stick it here. Type int struct. Okay. And this applicant needs to implement the applicant interface. So is over 17, we need to return true. So this at the moment is just a stub. True. and holds license needs to be false. And get initials needs to return string mdb. There we go. Okay, so at the moment we've just created a stub, but we want to be able to, within our code, change the response here for get initials. So the easiest way to really create a test double for this is to give our struct a value that can be changed. So we'll just create a parameter within our struct. We'll call it initials. That'll be a string. And now we can just return v.initials. Okay. So I know this doesn't look like a mock that's generated by a mocking framework, but this is doing exactly the same thing. It's allowing us to change the value that's returned from a function within our struct that implements our interface. We now should be able to add the ability to create a driving license number for an applicant. So let's start using this in a test. So we can do, so our applicant is a valid applicant, and the initials are mdb. Let's just stick all this in one line, small. Okay. We can pass the applicant into the generate function, and now we can say we should s dot no error. So we should not be given an error, and s dot equals, so we expect it to be mdb for the first bit, so our license number. So let's run this and see what happens. So we're getting an error. So we received an unexpected error. So we weren't expecting an error, but we got an underage applicant error. So let's go into our code and fix that problem. So we're currently not checking if our applicant is underage. So let's start with that. So if a dot, let's check they're not over 17, we can do that. And then we can return an empty string and a nil to make compile. It does compile. So we'll rerun. And there we go. So now we're expecting MDB, but we've got an empty string. So hopefully we can solve this as well. So let's do a dot get initials, save. And there we have it. So we now have a passing test. But obviously this is not a great example of a driving license number. We also want the driving license number to hold the applicant's date of birth. So let's add that to our interface. So get date of birth. And simplify things here, we want it to be a string. It will know the format. We're not going to go into formatting dates and things, so it's just going to want to return string. And we want our, here you go, our underage applicant to implement the applicant interface. So again, this function will not be called because of the error case, so it can just return an empty string. And if we take the license holder one, okay, and the final one we need to add it to is the valid applicant. And again, we want to be able to change this. So we will add a new date of birth field, string, and our valid applicant will return the date of birth given when we set it up. Okay, so now we need to give this also a date of birth. 23rd August 2011. There we go. Well, okay. There we go. So it's got a date of birth. Okay. Oh, actually, we don't want the slash in it. It's a function to do it. So there we go. So now our application should generate. So our application should generate a driving license number now, which is made up of the initials of the applicant and then the date of birth of the applicant. So if we run that, okay, so it's now missing the date of birth, so we can go in and add that functionality to our test. Now we can do something like return v dot sprintf %s get initials in and return applicant dot get date of birth. There we go. Save. Ooh, double return. Yeah. So save that and run it. Okay. And there we have it. We have our functionality working with a test double. We don't know what implements applicant, but our test doubles give us some functionality. So a real user might not have a date of birth field. They might have a first name, middle name, last name field, or they might have a name field that they need to needs to have some functionality within it. We don't know what that's going to look like. We don't care what that looks like. All we want to do is ask something for a date of birth and initials, and it return it in the correct format for us. We're not responsible for what happens within that at this point. So there we have it. Our license generation works. And what we can do is we can take this test and we can say something like test license generation shorter initials. So if we take the initial, take the middle initial out, go, save, and if we run this again, the test should just pass. And it does. So our mock is now created and it works, and we have it being used in our code under test. The code under test has no idea what happens in get initials. It just knows that it should be given a string. And the same with date of birth. It doesn't know what happens within date of birth, but it again knows it should be given a string because of the interface it's defined. That's a very simple kind of mock. And in later videos, we will use some of the mocking frameworks available to us, and we'll use mocks much more heavily. But basically all a mock is it's something that implements your interface and allows you to, within your test code, set up what happens when you call that function or those functions in your code under test. So that's it for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed it. In the next video, we'll look at the final type of test double, which is a fake. Thank you for watching this episode of Testing All the Things. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please rate and review the video and subscribe to the channel. If you did not and you have any feedback, please leave a comment in the comment section of the video or contact me on Twitter @Bradle.